afternoon to everyone. I am not a professional, and I'm sure that we have very competent professionals who address such subjects very effectively, and I'm sure they have many useful points to convey, all very valid. But I'm a monk, not a professional. However, I do have a lot to say on this. I will try to present before you a refreshingly new perspective to the topic. Something for which I will need to draw from the ancient spiritual tradition of India, and specifically from the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the most well-known spiritual texts. And for the first part of this talk, I'll try to give you a conceptual framework, a conceptual tool, which I believe you can use very effectively, not just for your professional life, but also for your personal life. And once I've described this concept to you, and then we'll see how we can apply it to the topic at hand. Because we have limited time, and because the topic will most likely be new, or the concept that I'm going to introduce will be most likely new to most of you, time will not permit me to elaborate on that concept as much as I would have liked to. But in the given time that I have, I will try to do the best I can. And then we'll take it from there. What I'll do is, first of all, the concept itself. Yes, can we have the next one? And this is the concept I'm going to introduce. The three modes of material nature from the Bhagavad Gita. How many of you have heard of the Bhagavad Gita? Okay, it's an ancient spiritual book from India, one of the most well-known ones, which contains profound spiritual wisdom and a lot of wisdom about this world as well. So this concept of the three modes of material nature is very fascinating and interesting, and it allows us to analyze many, many things in our life, and we'll see that as we go along. Yes. So bear with me for the next few minutes as I try to explain this concept to you. And if it gets to be a bit of an overdose, just raise your hand and I'll slow down a bit. The three modes of material nature are the underlying qualities from which the universe is derived. That's pretty profound, isn't it? So we're getting into realms of cosmology and everything else, but we'll see how it's so practical and relevant for us. These modes thus pervade, characterize, and influence everything within the universe, because the universe is derived from them. Therefore, these modes are all pervasive, and there is nothing that these modes do not influence or affect. Everything in our life, in our experience and outside of it, in the totality of our environment, is influenced by the three modes of material nature. Yeah. Therefore, everything within the universe can be analyzed in terms of the three modes of material nature. There's nothing you can't analyze, whether it's professional, personal, social, domestic, economic, political. It's a very broad concept. But when you really go deep into it, you can apply it in every sphere of your life. Yes. So these three modes are as follows. The mode of goodness, which in Sanskrit is called sattva. The mode of passion, which is called in Sanskrit rajas. The mode of ignorance, in Sanskrit called tamas. We needn't worry about the Sanskrit words. let's just stick to the three words: goodness, passion, and ignorance. The three words are almost self-explanatory. You get an idea of what's indicated here. Goodness, passion, ignorance. We move on. To understand how everything is characterized and influenced by the three modes, consider the example of how the three basic colors, red, yellow, and blue, combine to produce all other colors. R, Y, B. Yellow and blue combine to form green, and so on. So every color in existence basically is just a combination of these three fundamental colors. So they call it primary colors. Mix them in different ways and you get every single color in existence. But basically it's just these three. In the same way, the three modes combine in various ways to create the unlimited diversity we see around us in the world. And indeed, you see diversity in terms of life forms, for example. You see so many species of life. You see insects and worms, birds, animals, aquatics, humans. You see plants and grass. Even amongst a given species, you see so much of variety. Amongst human beings, there's unlimited variety of individuals. And as far as climates, as far as topography is concerned, as far as food is concerned, climate is concerned, there's unlimited variety. Why do these varieties happen in life? Why are we all different? Even twins are different. What explains this variety? And gradually, as we begin to understand this concept of the three modes, we'll see that's because these three modes are such a strong influence on us and on everything. So it is the way these three modes combine that creates this diversity. So one aspect of something is as it is because the modes have combined in a certain way. Something else is as it is because the modes have combined in a different way. Just as one color exists because the primary colors have combined in one way. So the three modes therefore cover everything in all of existence. Yes, please. Now let's talk about the general characteristics of the three modes. In Sanskrit they call it gunas. Don't worry about that word. Let's just call it the three modes. Goodness, passion, and ignorance. So the mode of goodness leads to purity, it leads to happiness, and it leads to knowledge. The mode of passion is born of and leads to unlimited desires, excessively hard work, greed, indulgence in worldly pleasures, usually excessively so. The mode of ignorance is characterized by foolishness, sleep, laziness, intoxication, uncleanliness. Now, even before we go further, again you've got a better idea from where we started off. Some pictures forming in your mind by now as to what we are talking about when we speak of these three words: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Okay, can we go ahead? The mode of goodness conditions one to happiness. If you remember, I mentioned it not only pervades everything, it not only characterizes everything, it also influences everything. So we are all under the influence of a certain combination of the three modes. And that also determines our personality and our psyche. So those who are conditioned by the mode of happiness, or mode of goodness, are basically happy individuals. Very few of them around, right? The mode of passion conditions one to fruitive activity. By fruitive, I mean activity that is performed with some kind of expectation of a reward at the end of it, with attachment to the results of one's actions. I perform something because I really want that result. That's called fruitive activity. one who is conditioned by the mode of passion is very active by nature. The mode of ignorance conditions one to madness. Just like a person who's in an intoxicated state, is helpless. So these are the broad psychological classifications, and we can understand therefore that these three terms, goodness, passion and ignorance, refer to qualities also, and at the same time they're also forms of bondage. They condition us to think, speak and act in a certain way. Next please. A few pictures about to explain. Okay, you'll see different pictures here now. Now you get a sense. What's in the mode of passion? What's in the mode of ignorance? What's in the mode of goodness? What do you think about the picture right at the top, where the two ladies are buying some fruit? What does that look like? Which of the three modes? Goodness. And what's going on over here? Or what's going on top there? That's the mode of ignorance. Because you're dealing with dead material, you're dealing with decomposed material, you're dealing with things that are unclean. What are things that, what you see here, chili and spice, it's the mode of passion. Okay, you go on. So food, so everything, as I said, can be analyzed according to the three modes. You can analyze food, and anything you can think of can be analyzed in accordance with the three modes. So let's take just a few illustrative examples. Food in the mode of goodness, like fresh salad, fruit, lightly spiced food, food that is basically juicy, nourishing, that is good for health. Then you have food in the mode of passion that is strongly spiced, that's too hot or too cold. And stale food, food that is a product that is decomposed, food that is a product of violence, is food in the mode of ignorance. So basically, all kinds of meat, fish and so on are foods in the mode of ignorance because they're essentially decomposing bodies which we try to cover over by various types of preservatives and so on. So this is food in the three modes, briefly. Yes, next please. Animals are the mode of goodness. You have the cow and the elephant. What do you know about them? They're vegetarians, right? They're essentially very loving animals, even elephants. And they can be very gentle, even though they look very big and intimidating. But elephants can be very gentle creatures. So animals in the mode of goodness. Next. Animals in the mode of passion. It says it. The pictures say it all. So the word passion indicates what it is. Yes, next please. Animals in the mode of ignorance. You have the camel, you have various other animals in that species, like the donkey also, for example. Yes, next one. Time in the three modes. The early morning hours are in the mode of goodness. Once the sun is up, in the daytime, it's the mode of passion. And when it's night, post-sunset, the time is in the mode of ignorance. Okay? Places in the three modes. The countryside with its rolling hills and lush fields and serene atmosphere is in the mode of goodness. The cities where everyone is active for earning money and for enjoyment is in the mode of passion. And the nightclubs and places like that are in the mode of ignorance. Okay, next. Activities in the three modes. Now, please indicate to me this is in which mode?
Passion.
Passion. This is in which mode? Goodness. And that? Ignorance. Okay, now actually we can have a whole kind of list of things you can analyze. You can analyze music, you can analyze recreation, you can analyze everything in this universe according to the three modes. I've taken only a few samples just to give you an idea. But the focus now is on the psychological symptoms of sattva. Sattva guna means the mode of goodness. Let's try to see the psychological attributes of a person in the mode of goodness. But before I come to that, I just want to mention that these three modes usually exist in some combination. And very rarely will you find something that is exclusively in the mode of goodness and that doesn't have anything in the mode of passion and ignorance. Similarly, you would hardly ever find something that is exclusively in the mode of passion and it doesn't have any passion, ignorance or goodness. So we're going to talk of pure goodness, then we'll talk of the qualities of pure passion, the qualities of pure ignorance. And what about us ordinary folk? We have a combination of these. So some of us have more of goodness, less of passion, less of ignorance. Some of us have more of passion, perhaps a good dose, not healthy, but some dose of ignorance and some little goodness. So these things will vary. So as I list out these attributes, in your own mind, reflect on where you stand or where you hope to stand. Let's look at these attributes. Number 1, contentment. Number 2, knowledge. Number 3, happiness. Next, intellectual pursuit. Next, clear understanding. Purity. Cleanliness, morality, mental soundness and balance. A rare thing these days, unfortunately. So many people these days don't have sound mental balance. Yes, spiritual inclination, clear senses, calm and peaceful by nature. The person does not strive to satisfy unlimited desires that exist in the mind. The person doesn't usually have unlimited desires, but even if he or she has them, doesn't try to go out of his or her way to satisfy them beyond a reasonable degree. Next, please. Self-control. Yes. Discrimination between good and bad. Maybe we can just keep going down. Dutiful, responsible, determined, enthusiastic, no bragging or boasting, equal in success and failure, truthful, sympathetic and sensitive, kind, mindful of past and future, especially when you're taking decisions. A person in the mode of goodness is very contemplative and careful in taking decisions. The person thinks, well, what was the past, what was the background of this particular situation? And what will be the implications of a particular decision? So that person carefully considers the past and the future before taking some decisions. Yes. Understanding of one's spiritual identity is instinctively religious or at least spiritual, is generous by nature, feels embarrassed at acting improperly, is patient, steady, sensible, conscientious, and has clear thinking. Okay? Okay, now has that sunk in a little bit? The mode of goodness. Now you have an idea of what the mode of goodness is. Now let's go on to the mode of passion. And eventually we'll bring it all to our values and to the leadership styles and so on. Yes. intense emotions, action-oriented, desire, not of more, for more. Desire for more, there's hankering, you want more and more and more. Restlessness, the person's always restless, on the move all the time, wants to get bigger and better. And the hallmark is the enjoyment of worldly pleasures. The person in the mode of passion gives a lot of importance to enjoying worldly pleasures. It's very fickle-minded, changes very often. Thinks one thing, another thing later. And because the pursuit of worldly pleasures is fraught with anxiety, therefore the person in the mode of passion is anxious, has many worldly aspirations and desires, and undergoes a great effort to achieve those goals. Yes. Is dissatisfied even in gain. Yes. Lacks moral and physical purity. Is bold, arrogant, falsely proud. Claims exaggerated personal importance, envious of others' achievements, desires rapid success, seeks favor of people of influence and power, considers himself or herself bigger and better than others, is rash and eager to quarrel or fight. Sounds familiar? Well, as I'm saying these things, probably some pictures are coming to your mind of people you know. Whether in the mode of goodness, mode of passion, certain qualities must be coming to your mind. Can be hostile and violent. Likes to hear himself or herself being praised. There's a tendency to ridicule others. Justifies action by his or her strength. Okay. Now that we've got a better idea of what the mode of passion is, let's talk about the mode of ignorance. Well, a person is in ignorance. And there's apathy, there's indifference. Basically doesn't care about anything. He has no goal, no aim. He's just living an aimless life. There's laziness, there's sleep, excessive sleep, there's confusion. In extreme cases, there's insanity. The person is wrathful by nature, lacks generosity, unwilling to share with others. Now you may see traits of all the three modes in yourself. So we need to analyze this and see, where do I stand? Usually what we do is we do a whole test. And we make everybody go through this test and we do a self-analysis and find out where you stand in terms of goodness, passion and ignorance. And then you get a score. It's only for your personal evaluation. If you want, you can share it with others, but you need not. And then it gives you an idea of where you stand. So, is violent-natured, is apt to quarrel, depends on others for survival like a parasite, is hypocritical, is chronically fatigued, laments, okay, that's a bit of a typo there. Lamentation, he perpetually is lamenting about something or the other, is complaining about something or the other. Is in the delusion, is depressed, has a self-destructive nature, has false hopes and expectations, and is fearful. Is that it for the list? Or we have one more? Okay. Likes to procrastinate, doesn't perform any endeavor despite having the capacity to do something. Drags on forever that which can be done in a short time. Have you seen children eating? How long do they take to finish a meal? Forever. Yes. Take a little something, move on somewhere else, come back after some time, do something. Because childhood is usually in that state. A mix of passion and ignorance, a large dose of ignorance, which is why they need to sleep a lot, they cry a lot, they complain a lot, yes? So, we procrastinating, drags on forever that which can be done in a short time. Addicted to intoxicants. Just the other day I was returning from a program right here, and we were going up to the car park and we saw this man on a cycle who was very much an embodiment of this. I think he must have been on some intoxicant, maybe some drugs or something. And he was swearing in the most vulgar language of some lady who also seemed shocked that this man was swearing at her, apparently for no reason. So there you are, you have living examples of those who are in the mode of ignorance, addicted to intoxicants, unclean, untidy, disorganized. Now, will you stop here for a moment? So what I'd like to do is to ask you to think about these, reflect on these for a few moments. The mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. Before we move ahead, pause and think about your own nature. And where do you stand? Do you see yourself having a healthy mix of the three? Actually, it should be more of the mode of goodness, something of passion. Passion is also not all bad, actually, because we need some passion in life. You can't be just all in goodness. Ignorance is useful in a very limited degree because we also need sleep. If we don't sleep, then we can't function. But when we speak of ignorance, we're speaking of things done in excessive measure. Sleep more than required, etc. Please reflect on these attributes. Is there anything you'd like to share or ask about these three psychological categories before we move ahead? Anything you'd like to say or ask? Any reflections, comments, thoughts?
I think I'm a really passionate person.
I beg your pardon?
I think I'm really
Passionate.
I
think mine goes from mode to easy, it changes and it changes with circumstances, people around me as well. I'm a bit passionate, people are getting passionate.
Actually, that's a fact. See, you may be in a certain combination of the three modes at this moment. But in a different circumstance, the modes will change. Let's say someone provokes you. Your modes change rapidly. You move into even if you're sitting calm and peaceful, you're in the mode of goodness, and someone comes along and provokes you, and you get upset, and you explode. So you moved into the mode of passion and further on into the mode of ignorance. Yes, whatever be the provocation, the fact is that you've come under the influence of the other modes. So all through the day, you can track how your modes act on you. How your personality, your consciousness, your thoughts, your behavior, everything changes with the time of the day. When you wake up early in the morning, how do you feel? When you go to bed at night, how do you feel? When you're in the middle of your work in the office, what do you feel? When a client is not happy with you, what do you feel? Or when you have a tiff with someone, what do you feel? You can see therefore the modes are acting on you. It's almost as if we are helpless. There is something that just causes us to act and think and feel in a certain way. I was sitting there calm and peaceful, and here comes along this person, says something, does something, and works me up. And I become a victim, yes? So that person ends up controlling me. So even though I may detest that person, but actually I'm submitting to that person. Because I've allowed that person to control my consciousness. I was sitting peacefully, but now I've become upset. And the cause is him, is it? No, the cause is not him. The cause is me. I allowed myself to be manipulated. Similarly, when you go to different places, you see the influence. When you're standing outside a nightclub, which is blaring with loud music, and there are people there around you in that mode, your mind gets influenced a little bit. When you're in a place with spiritual people and there's some very serene atmosphere, then your mind calms down a little bit. When you're in a deadline to submit something at work, then there you are, everyone around is passionate, you've got to get things done in time. That's how your mind works. So we are constantly being pushed around by the three modes. Sometimes the mode of goodness dominates, sometimes passion, sometimes ignorance, sometimes different combinations of these. So that's how everything goes on. Yes? So, can we move on, please? So everyone aspires for happiness, contentment in life, satisfaction and staunch determination for achieving difficult goals and so on. These attributes are the characteristics of goodness. Knowledge of what the three modes are and being aware of how the three modes are influencing us encourages the cultivation of the mode of goodness so that we can be happy and contented here and now. So those who want to be happy, those who want to be in control of their own lives, those who do not want to be like a football in the hands of other people and their words and their actions, and you want to control your destiny rather than be controlled by the behavior of other people, well, we need to control, we need to move into the mode of goodness more. We do have traits of the mode of goodness. Even the person I talked about, who I saw the other day, who was swearing loudly, even he, I'm sure, has some trait of the mode of goodness. It's just that at that particular point in time, he was under the influence of that intoxicant, and therefore the mode of ignorance predominated his consciousness. But who knows? Perhaps when he's sober, he's a kind, gentle soul. You never know. So, we need to strengthen the mode of goodness traits within us if we want to be contented, if we want to be happy, self-assured. And it's important therefore for us to know what these three modes are, how they act. We should be aware of the way they function, what the factors are that influence these modes, which places, which times, which people, which activities and so on pertain to which kind of modes, and what should I be doing to strengthen the mode of goodness within me. Okay? Apart from the fact that you can be contented here and now, there's another important reason for understanding the concept of the three modes of nature. There is a deeper, higher benefit of being in the mode of goodness, namely, that it is the platform from which one can most easily adopt a purely spiritual life beyond the influence of the three modes of material nature. Ultimately, we are all spiritual beings. And the crises we have in our life, the pains, the anxieties, the sorrows, and even the pleasures of life, the so-called pleasures of life, are all there because we are thinking ourselves to be this material body. This body of flesh and blood and bones. But according to the Bhagavad Gita, we are not. We are actually spiritual entities who are within this material body. So by understanding how the three modes work, we do ourselves the greatest favor by understanding that which is beyond the three modes, beyond the stage of conditioning and bondage, and we begin to understand what real freedom is. Real freedom is not in doing whatever you like. That's the common understanding of freedom. I should be allowed to do whatever I like, and that's not it. Such freedom will lead to even greater bondage. So the spiritual understanding is very important. Yeah. So by adopting a suitable lifestyle and spiritual practice, one decreases the influence of rajas and tamas, which means passion and ignorance, in one's life and increases sattva or goodness. One's spiritual practices become stronger with one's being more firmly fixed in sattva or goodness. So by taking to a suitable lifestyle, we can adjust the influence of the three modes on us, come to the spiritual platform, and then take to spiritual practices. Thus, through knowledge of the three gunas, gunas means the modes, and the soul, one becomes a diagnostician of one's own state of consciousness or personality and of one's own spiritual advancement. So this is a background about the three modes of material nature. Was it too much of an overdose? You were able to get it? Yes? You got a grip of it now. Let's then move on to the next part of our topic. We're talking of values, and values in connection to leadership. And we'll see how we'll apply what we've learned so far into the topic of values and leadership. So what are values? Values are important and lasting beliefs or ideals about what is good or bad, and desirable and undesirable. They have major influence on a person's behavior and attitude and serve as broad guidelines in all situations. And they indicate what we consider valuable. There's obviously a connection between values and value. If I consider something valuable, that becomes my value system. My value system develops according to what I consider valuable. So for me, money is everything, then my value system centers around money, and I will do whatever is possible for me, ethical or unethical, to get that money. If enjoyment is everything for me, if that's the most valuable thing for me, I will do anything to get that enjoyment. Because that's my value system. So my value system, my morality, my ethics, my principles of life will center around what I think is valuable and worthy of attaining. A person is of course known by his or her values. We all have values. The question is, do our values pertain to the mode of ignorance, to the mode of passion, or to the mode of goodness? That's the question. What kind of value system do we need? Which mode do we want our values to be in? Can we move on? N.K. Gandhi is popularly known as Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, so there was a famous quote, he said, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. I let that sink in for a while. What do you believe in? What's life all about for you? What is the meaning of life for you? What is your belief system? Based on that, everything else, your destiny, will be determined. A very meaningful quote. So therefore, if we want to change our destiny, if we want to take control of our lives in a positive and meaningful way, we must decide what kind of values we want in our life. Okay, we have the next one. The key, therefore, is to determine the right kind of values. Values that characterize enlightened leadership. This means values that pertain to the mode of goodness. The moment we speak of something that is enlightened, we're speaking of the mode of goodness. Because the mode of goodness is knowledge. So leadership in knowledge means leadership in the mode of goodness. There can be leadership in the mode of passion as well. There can be leadership in the mode of ignorance as well. But enlightened leadership, which is where all thoughtful people would like to move towards, means leadership that is based on values that pertain to the mode of goodness. So reflect for a moment at all the psychological attributes of the mode of goodness that we spoke about. Those psychological attributes will also give rise to a certain set of values in our life. For example, respect to others, tolerance, humility, integrity, listening to others, purity, sharing a vision that is collective, that is inspirational. Now these are all things that characterize enlightened leadership. Okay, next one. And yet, some degree of the mode of passion is essential in an endeavor like a business. After all, you're all not monks. And even as a monk, I do have to travel around everywhere. I still have to make sure I check in time. I have to see my timetables, the security, the immigration, and rush here and rush there, make sure we get in time. We can't avoid the mode of passion. And qualities like drive, initiative, creativity, innovation, seeking gain or profit are an essential part of human endeavor. The problem, however, is when there is too much of this. Profit is not a bad word. Everyone seeks some profit, some benefit in life. You can't survive without it. The question is how much? And what is the underlying motivation behind all of it? Is this an end in itself? If I'm doing this out of fear, it's the mode of ignorance. If I'm doing it out of a sense of seeking reward for something, it's the mode of passion. If I'm doing it out of a sense of duty, it's the mode of goodness. And if I'm doing it out of love, for some higher spiritual purpose, it's beyond the three modes of material nature. Yes, move on. But such mode of passion-induced features have to be significantly tempered by values in the mode of goodness. And this is the crux of the matter. While you're in a business, or even let's say in the field of sport, because you can't have sport without passion. Yes? It's intensely competitive. And we can't wish away passion from this world, because creativity means passion. So it's there, but what we need is a strong dose of the mode of goodness that will temper and control that mode of passion and keep it within limits. The mode of goodness gives us our value system. The mode of passion is restless. It drives us. I want more. I want this. I want that. But the mode of goodness calms it down. Okay, easy does it. Okay, you want profit? All right, but do it this way. Yes. You know, in the 80s they had that, there was that movie, I forget the name of that movie. Wall Street something, and they had this slogan, "Greed is God." Yes, remember that? Greed is God. And then it chronicled the Wall Street collapse at that time. So when somebody starts thinking greed is God, then we have a problem. That's why they need some goodness there. Because if you allow the mode of passion to run riot, you will have chaos, devastation. So the mode of passion is required in society, especially when it comes to economic activity, when it comes to creation of wealth. And I'm focusing on that because you're a bank. So you're dealing with wealth, with money, assets. So it's all right to have these goals and have these ambitions, but they must be tempered. So a value system must come from the mode of goodness. And certain values that pertain to the mode of passion, like, all right, I want profit. How much profit? X%. This is my target. I make my targets for certain profitability, for certain, I want to, my next plan for this year is that I will get so many more customers and I will do this or that, which is fine. But we shouldn't let it run riot. So when we are there in the mode of goodness, if that is our lodestar, so to speak, and we have the next one, please, then we will be moving along in a very sustainable way. It is imperative, therefore, that the mode of goodness be cultivated so that it may serve as our lodestar in our leadership responsibilities and also in our personal lives. You know what a lodestar is, right? A lodestar is a navigational aid, it's like a magnetic compass that shows you the direction in life. So, the mode of goodness is necessary even for those who act in predominantly passionate modes. Even someone who's like a military man who has to really act in violent activities, in the midst of some war or something like that, must also have a healthy dose of the mode of goodness. Because when you're there on the battlefield, you have to take decisions. You have to be very discriminating what to do, what not to do, with a cool head. Mode of passion means hot head. Mode of goodness means cool head. So with a cool head, you discriminate and you take decisions. All right, this is what should be done at this time. So the mode of goodness will act as our lodestar. All right, can we go ahead? And finally, some tips for cultivating the mode of goodness. Practical tips by which you can bring in more of the mode of goodness into your life. As I mentioned, we already have some of the mode of goodness in our life, but we want more. Okay. Choose your company wisely. Especially keep the company of those who are in the mode of goodness predominantly and who also value the mode of goodness a lot. Who understand the importance of cultivating values in the mode of goodness. You are what you associate with. Company is infectious. If you're with people with a particular mindset, sooner or later you become like them. It's inevitable. It rubs off. So if we are with people who aspire to be in the mode of goodness, then we will become inclined in that direction. The second, choose your food wisely. Eat and drink sattvic. Sattvic means in the mode of goodness. Pure food, healthy food, nourishing food, food that is non-violent, food that is not the product of cruelty and violence. Because a violent any violent act will induce a violent mentality, or at least a passionate mentality in the person who eats it. So there are foods which are the product of violence. Even though when it comes before us in a plate, it's so meticulously and attractively dressed and so on, we don't like to consider the violence that has gone behind it before it comes to our plate. But there is violence that is behind it, and we're ingesting that violent quality. So that's not good for cultivating our mental state of goodness. Similarly with everything we drink. I will not elaborate on that further. I think I've made my point. Choose your recreational activities wisely. There's recreation in the mode of passion, recreation in the mode of ignorance, recreation in the mode of goodness. Okay, let me ask you a question. Can you give me an example of recreation in the mode of goodness? Sorry? Going to the park. Excellent. That's a really nice point. The park is a nice place with a lot of greenery, serene atmosphere, and you go for a walk in the park. That's fine. An example of recreation in the mode of passion? Sorry?
Football.
Football, okay, yes. And recreation in the mode of ignorance?
To a pub.
Go to the pub. You said it, not me. So, this is an example. So, if you want to cultivate the mode of goodness, choose your recreational activities wisely. Yes, next. Okay. Go to bed early, rise early, and oops, bathe immediately. You know that old proverb, early to bed, early to rise, makes one healthy, wealthy and wise? You know, some of our ancients were quite wise people. They came up with really good things. How many of you have seen a sunrise? Okay, not everybody though. I mean, I don't mean a sunrise after you've stayed up all night. But I mean, how many of you have seen a sunrise after you went to bed early and then woke up? You know, when I was in London, I went to our temple, and we start really early in the morning. Our morning program starts at 4:30, so we wake up at 3:30. And we were staying at a place nearby, and my host escorted me to the temple. It's right on Soho Street and Oxford Street, the junction. So as we were heading there, that was my first visit some years ago. And I saw this group of young men and women standing there at 4 in the morning, and I was impressed. And I said, really, look, people in UK, young people really look like they get up so early in the morning. And my host said, no, they go to bed just now. They've been up all night, and this is a nightclub over here, and they go to bed right now. After some time, they'll see the sunrise and then go to bed. So that's which mode? The mode of ignorance. So they go to bed at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning and wake up probably 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock or whatever in the afternoon. Okay, next please. And bathing immediately is very important actually, because sleep is an activity in the mode of ignorance. So you need to freshen yourself up. When you bathe, you cleanse not only your physical body, but also your subtle body. Okay, keep clean and tidy, internally and externally. Just yesterday, somebody sent me a little video clip of one of these inspirational talks by some military man. He was wearing a military uniform, and I didn't see the whole of it. And he starts off by saying, if you want to do big things in life, Start off by making your bed the first thing in the morning when you wake up. And he says, if you can't do the small things right, how will you get the big things right? And if by chance your day goes miserably, at least you come back home to see your bed made by you. So I thought that was a nice point, because it means that your life is organized. Your life is in the mode of goodness, everything clean, tidy, things should be in their proper place, not strewn around everywhere. Internally as well, we should try to be clean, devoid of negative emotions about others, hatred, jealousy, and anger, bad feelings about others. Others may not even realize that we have these feelings about them. So they're not so much affected, but it's us who suffer, So when we have negative feelings about others, it's we who undergo the torment. So we should be clean internally as well as externally. In Germany, there was this person who came and told me that people come to the office and take bath. They bathe in the office because if the office starts at 8, they wake up at 7:40. And then they just put on a set of clothes and rush to work. And there's the bathing facility in the office, and then they brush their teeth and they should do everything there in the office. And I thought he was just pulling my leg. But he said, no, he was serious. In that office, that's what people did. They woke up and they just came, and that's... What kind of mode is that? What mode? Well, at least they had a bath, okay, but... Mode of ignorance. Mode of ignorance. Oh, okay, we're there, yeah. So, being clean, rising early, and when you rise early, get ready peacefully, Don't have to rush through all the time. You have enough pressures in your life. You have enough tension, you have deadlines to meet. Why to add to them? Wake up, sleep early, wake up early, do your morning chores peacefully, come to work with a cool head, with a happy heart, and begin your day's work. Okay, the next. Engage in spiritual practice and reading spiritual literature. That will expand your consciousness like anything. Your horizons of awareness will grow unlimitedly. You will expose yourself to another universe of possibilities, of reality, a universe of bliss. The next, please. Cultivate qualities such as humility, gratitude, tolerance, respect, non-violence, etc. The word cultivate means that we have to make an effort to do that. It's not easy, but the effort itself is an indication of the mode of goodness. That we consider these qualities important enough for us to strive for them. And especially when the circumstances are a little trying, it may be hard, for example, to have some gratitude, or to be humble, or to be respectful. But that is the test. Okay, the next one, please. Develop a sense of service. We should, even in our spare time, just go and do some service to different places. Ultimately, it's of course, when you develop your spiritual potential, you develop spiritual service attitude. But even in general, the idea that I want to serve everybody, this is an important element of the mode of goodness. And over the last few decades, one can see that management theory has increasingly come around to advocating such things. I remember the first time Stephen Covey's book became famous, and we read it and I thought, wow, he's just talking what Bhagavad Gita is saying. It's exactly what we believe. But it was articulated in a way that corporate people could understand and relate to. and everybody loved it, and for good reason. So you see, time works like that. Everything moves in a cycle. And the traditional values that our forefathers cherished and which we jettisoned a while ago in the pursuit of progress are coming back now. And our thinkers, our enlightened people are now beginning to realize that those traditional values like humility, gratitude, tolerance, respect are indeed so worthy of acquiring. We should cherish these things. So sense of service is also like that. And where do we stand now? Let's say yes. Okay, so I'm right on time, just 2 minutes over time. So what we'll do now is to halt here, and I'll leave the floor open for questions and discussion. Thank you very much indeed for being a very patient audience. As I indicated at the beginning of the talk, this would be a different talk because I've given you a new perspective, a new conceptual tool of the three modes of material nature. I do hope and pray that you can utilize this concept in your life and delve further into the details of it and apply it in your personal as well as your professional life. And now I leave the floor open for questions or comments. Please feel free. Yes.
You mentioned to read literature that's like spiritual in nature. Do you have any recommendations of what someone might start out to read if they're not too sure where to find things like that?
So your question is, what kind of spiritual literature should you read? Is that your question?
So someone who hasn't done it before, like, you know, you give them
Right.
the guide.
Now, of course, in this world we have a diversity of paths, and it's not for me to insist that anybody should follow a particular path. That's up to the individual to decide what he or she wishes to choose. Personally, however, I follow the path of the Bhagavad Gita, and that is what changed my life personally. I used to be a banker like you as well, but that was 30 years ago. And that influenced me enough to take this step. And that's certainly a book that opened my eyes and gave such profound wisdom and an understanding of life and the meaning of life and how to achieve it. So that's one thing that I could strongly recommend. Bhagavad Gita, but there are other faiths, there are other traditions, and feel free to choose from wherever you feel inspired to. Okay? When you're dealing with the mode of goodness, or the passion, mode of ignorance and passion, it overwhelms you. And then wherever you go, you start analyzing things according to these modes. Okay, that's the mode of passion. That's goodness, that's ignorance. And you'll see it if you really internalize what we've discussed today. You'll be seeing yourself analyzing things according to the three modes as we go on. And is that passion, or is that ignorance, or is that this, or is that that? I think it's a good thing. Because then you start becoming self-aware. You start moving ahead towards the mode of goodness. Any questions or comments? Yes. Do you have a mic there?
Obviously, being a parent is a pretty important leadership task in itself. Yeah. What are some tips to sort of encourage kids to move more towards the mode of goodness?
Your question is about parenting, and parents are also leaders. Yes? And how do you help the kids move into the mode of goodness? Well, first of all, the parents have to move into the mode of goodness. Then they can expect the kids to move into the mode of goodness. And by the way, do you know why there are kids in this world? To destroy the ego of the parents. Experience that? Because no matter how big a person you are in the world, but your kid is going to be equally disrespectful and still do whatever he or she wants to do. So that's a tough one. Yes, it's a challenge, especially in this day and age. But the most important thing is the example that the parents set. If the parents are living in a life of goodness, if that's the value system they have inculcated in the child by example, not merely by words, then the child imbibes that. And it's easy, it's natural. But also, as the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. So most parents face the challenge of their child being exposed to other influences which may be very negative. And that's the challenge, and therefore we need to make awareness, create awareness about this everywhere. In fact, everywhere I go, this is one of the most common questions that people ask me. Because parents are so anxious when they see the way their children are moving and they're constantly anxious about this. Is one of the major issues confronting the world today. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that. So actually, the parents are not able to be in the mode of goodness because they have been trained to be in the mode of goodness. There's a little incident about this little boy picks up the phone and someone at the other end says, is Daddy at home? And he says, hold on. He goes and asks Daddy, Daddy, is there someone on the line for you? Okay, son, tell him I'm not at home. He comes and says, Dad says he's not at home. So, what has he learned? He's learned that you have to tell a lie. So it's such an innocent little thing, it may seem. But what have you taught the child? That it's okay to lie, it's the dumb thing. And then it goes on like that. It's a big topic, but essentially the atmosphere at home has to be in the mode of goodness. Then it's possible. But if there's modes of passion, especially ignorance that prevail, that's going to be very hard. Any other question or comment? Okay, so my thanks to all of you, and Rajesh, you organized this program, thank you very much. And I hope that I was able to offer you some food for thought. There's going to be food for the belly as well, not to worry. But I hope I was able to offer you some food for thought. As I said, this was not intended to be like a professional leadership workshop. It was meant to be something that would open your mental horizons to some concepts and ideas that could be very, very inspirational and useful for you in your personal as well as your professional lives. My best wishes and prayers for each one of you. Thank you very much.